Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the Infinite Danger Room. I'm Matt Price. I'm here with Chris, Borthick, Anthony Brown, and Matt Howlett. And we are going to take a look at the pilot episode of Black Lightning, recently aired on the CW. Was the most watched premiere since Legends of Tomorrow. Starting out a new superhero series and apparently a new superhero universe. From what they said, this is set in its own universe. Although, will it ever cross over with the other CW shows? It wouldn't totally surprise me, but for now, they're kind of setting it up on its own. So, let's throw around the table and just kind of get general thoughts. But the short version is this is based on the DC comic book created by Tony Isabella and Trevor Von Eeden back in the 70s. And the character has been around in a variety of formats, from the Outsiders to the Justice League to his own series. And now he's being kind of updated and brought back for modern audiences in this CW show. So I don't know. I'm just going to kick it to 1, 2, 3. Everybody do a little bit, and then we'll kind of just everybody kind of fill in with what they find most interesting.
Okay. Well, I guess I'll kick it off then, since everyone looked at me. So no one can see that, but that's what happened. I really thought the first episode was really well done. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed kind of the backstory. To me, it has it kind of has a Dark Knight Returns sort of feel to it, with Black Lightning being banished for 9 years for reasons unknown, and we open with him being the principal, and we're not sure why he's not being Black Lightning anymore. It's got a lot of good setup, I think, for the series to come. It does have we do, of course, through flashbacks see him in action as the original Black Lightning, and we get to kind of see why he's not who he is. I also appreciated the nod to Kingsman, I feel like, with Taylor, and then I can't remember if Inspector Henderson is in the original stuff, but I just instantly thought of Superman when I heard Inspector Henderson.
I think that's the same character.
Yeah. So, and while they did say that this is separate, they actually put a line in the pilot that pretty much says it's probably not, because there's a mention on the TV news about other cities have people with powers and they're heroes. Why is ours different? So they could link it if they want to. Anthony?
I enjoyed the pilot as well. I think that one of the things that resonated throughout was the music. It struck me a lot like the Luke Cage Netflix series, where it seems like the music and the soundtrack is going to be a big part of what they do, and it's maybe going to get featured. Where music for this episode was provided by the following artists, but it was a great blend of current music as well as some old stuff, and even some of the movies that they took, or the music that they used was taken from other popular black movies like Dead Presidents. There were a couple of songs that were played throughout that were in the Dead Presidents movie and things like that. And I also think that it was on point for the times, especially with what's going on in Chicago with the gang violence. At least in this first episode, a lot of the things going on are centered around this gang called the 100, and they're shooting and killing hapless people, even the people that go to protest, even though they aren't in their block or their neighborhood protesting them directly, they're still lashing out and hurting and killing those people. And so I feel like this was on point, and it's a message that is steeped in modern times.
I really enjoyed this. I think what you two have said so far kind of I agree with both those statements. The music was great. I did like how there's no origin story that ties down the first episode of a lot of superhero TV shows, where it's like, okay, here's who this person is, here is their powers, how they got their power, and I feel like maybe the first episode of The Flash kind of got bogged down with that. And this one, it just kind of already establishes, yeah, he's a retired superhero, he has lightning powers, and it's going to be something terrible that's going to make him come out of retirement to go ahead and start fighting crime again. So I really liked that. So that way it felt like the show was always moving. There there were maybe like one or two spots where I thought maybe it could have picked the pace a little bit, but it was never dull by any means. So that's what I liked about it.
Yeah, you do have a lot of times pilots are pretty clunky, and I didn't think this came out very clunky at all. what probably resonated with me a lot, which you don't necessarily get on a lot of the other action shows, Flash is a young guy. He's got various romantic tensions and various things he's facing. But as somebody maybe closer to 40 than 20, a lot of those things you've kind of gone through and played out, and the things that you're looking at as challenges in your life are different. And so that's kind of where Jefferson Pierce resonated with me. He's like, I've built up this school. I've got to keep this school, even though there's, I've got to keep it together. I've got my kids. I'm trying to keep them doing the right thing. The fact that the pressures on him aren't really the same as what they would be on a 20-year-old superhero, and they very much played into the fact that, like, he was older and he had been a firebrand, and sometimes he wished he still could be, obviously. And obviously, because what kind of show it is, eventually he's going to be a superhero. But the fact that there's that tension between, okay, there's the right choice right now, and then there's the right choice, and then there's what I would have done 20 years ago, and just feeling the tension between that, I think it's something that all of us do as we get older, and I thought they played that really well.
Yeah. I think we should say at this point, too, spoilers. If you haven't watched the episode, we've kind of been nice and not.
So at this point, after about the 6-minute mark, go ahead and watch it. I don't think you'll regret the time spent watching it at all. I thought it was a fantastic pilot. So yeah, if you need to pause and watch the thing on the CW app or however you need to get a hold of it, watch it, and then we can get a little deeper into spoilers from here.
Okay.
Anthony, you got something?
Yeah, absolutely. So I wanted to talk about, I guess, the story itself. When the action starts to pick up, one of his daughters is snuck out from a charity function to go to a nightclub, even though she said she was going to a house party, which, of course, all teenagers do. So in the show, he has two daughters, one who's an older college student who's actually in med school, and the other is a high school age daughter who is up to the things that high school age girls are up to. The exact quote I don't know if I can use on this podcast, but they use the word fast, and at least growing up in my house, being called fast or described as fast isn't a positive connotation. It's definitely not here. But his youngest daughter goes to a club that's owned by the 100 gang, or at least that they hang out at. She ends up getting into it with, she ends up falling for, or at least hanging out with one of the kids that's in the gang. And then, he ends up getting in trouble with the crime boss, who, has the most villainous crime boss name of all, Lala. And that's really kind of how things take off. And then the kid that the younger daughter, Jennifer, ends up messing with shows up at the school. The older sister is protective. She makes him angry. She makes the young kid angry. And then, violence ensues from there, and that's really where things really start to take off. Again, it's really on point. The father steps in, or Black Lightning steps in, because he's the principal, and tells the young kid, like, what are you going to do? You're out on parole, or you just made parole. Like, do you really want to throw your life away? If you do this here, you're going to face life in prison with no way out. And he's trying to get him to see the reality of the decisions that he's making. And, of course, the kid, being a young kid, doesn't think about that at all. And, he's ready to just get revenge and start shooting stuff up. And the series really starts to take off.
Some interesting relationship stuff between Black Lightning and the intermediary gang leader, Lala, who obviously have a background. And they're sort of, that's something else I thought was interesting. Like, there are people who you relate to because you knew them as kids, but they become adults and they make their own choices. And whatever power you had over them or whatever respect they had for you then, it only goes so far. They're still making their own choices. And I thought that was an interesting scene where that conflict was played out. The only thing I didn't think totally worked, although it was a tense scene, was I don't know if you can really just go raid a high school and grab kids out of it. I mean, even in the worst parts of the country, I'm not sure that happened. I mean, I'm just not sure that happens without a huge, right. Because if anytime there's a school shooting, well, if you're horrible, obviously, tons of police show up. So I'm not sure you can show up and grab a kid out of school without just every police officer in a tri-state area showing up.
But remember, they established early on that he is resistant to metal detectors and all of the conventional stuff because of his, and we later learned that's because of his understanding with all the local gang people.
Right.
So he feels that false sense of security, like, well, it couldn't happen here.
I mean, maybe. Again, we're talking about a show where a guy shoots lightning, so I'm willing to give it. But that was the only thing that kind of struck me as maybe. Most of the other stuff, I'm like, that seems like, okay, reasonable. But then when they grab out, I'm like, I feel like there would be a huge response to that, you know?
Right.
Well, I don't know. I mean, the part where they shoot a guy and then throw him in a fish tank full of piranha.
But nobody saw that. But yeah, that is kind of crazy.
I mean, he's floating there in the background yelling at Tobias like, hey, help me out. But
right. We, the viewers. So I'm just saying that's not somewhere where police could have
Exactly.
immediately responded necessarily.
That was pretty brutal death.
It was pretty brutal.
He shot him, but he was still alive.
Exactly.
That's
Probably
So-
harpooned him.
It definitely sets that guy
Yeah,
up
I
as
think it
being
was a
a pretty
harpoon.
yeah,
hardcore
that's a good
Yeah.
point.
Yeah.
bad guy.
He was. I would be more afraid of him than I would be Daredevil's Kingpin.
Well, I mean, I think that's the point, right? Like, if this guy is the big batter or the Kingpin equivalent, you want him to look menacing and tough and everything else. Like, the way that Kingpin played out in the Daredevil Netflix series, like, you felt a lot of empathy for him, and then he ultimately turns into the Kingpin. Maybe in future seasons of Daredevil's or Netflix Daredevil, he'll become like the more sinister gangster Kingpin that we're used to seeing in the comics, but they have to build towards that, or they built towards that as they were building Daredevil at the same time, so both of the characters were on the rise. Whereas with this, they have a lot of history, and their stuff goes back a ways, because remember, the last fight that he was in was with Tobias, and that's ultimately what caused him to retire. So, you know, it's one of those things where he's more seasoned in his villainy than the Kingpin in the Netflix series.
Okay.
Yeah, I thought that character came off very scary and intense.
Right.
So, no, I mean, again, maybe that's a nitpick, but if they'd been walking away from the school and they had cut down an alley and somebody grabbed them, I would have been like, okay, yeah, sure, that could... Just run into the school with a bunch of guns, I feel like you just have so much response to that.
Actually, my nitpick with the series, with the episode, is just one little one, which was the and it's all for the show and the camera and the angle, but it's like he's standing on the top of the hotel with like 12 policemen, and it's just like, I could see you if I was in the parking lot.
I just assumed that like the lighting was like they couldn't see him, maybe
But-
like he was in a shadow.
So that was the only part where that's my only nitpick, where I was like, I think they
But that
could
was
see
for a
you.
cool shot.
It was a cool shot, but it was like, why are they not all like, hey, who's that dude?
What about that guy?
My nitpick is the music when he's actually fighting, because it was hip-hop or urban or black music throughout, and then when he's fighting the people, they switch over to
Is that Jack White? Or
I think so, like just something that's clearly not black.
Yeah.
And so I was just like, okay. And then when it was done, it was like, okay, here's some more black music. So I was just like, you know, at least hit me with something that's still urban and contemporary, or something thereabouts. Also, the character and the actor himself, he's high cut in that you can tell that this guy's jacked and he's in shape, but he comes off as just being squatty, and the armor seems like, I don't know, he seems like he's just a fire hydrant of a guy. And not that the comic book character was ever portrayed to be tall and slender and things like that, but the guy just comes off as bulky, and the costume doesn't seem like it sits right on him all the time. And I think, and they're probably the same actor, but at least when they do the flashbacks of him in his Parliament Funkadelic outfit, and he's bald, that costume seemed like it fit him, or it suited him a little bit better than this current one, because it's bulkier. Maybe that's because of the technology that's incorporated in it. I don't know, but the costume feels a little bit off to me, or it may get tweaked in future episodes or something like that, but it doesn't seem like it sits him just right.
And I'm sure they usually do tweak those costumes as they go. But, I mean, good point. He's an Olympic athlete in the comics, right? And I guess, did they say that in this too? I don't know what kind of athlete he is.
Track.
Is he, so I don't know, is he a guy does he look like a runner enough, or?
No, that's what I'm saying. Like, he doesn't seem like that, but
It seems like he does a lot of shrugs.
yeah, like he's, that's what
He might run a
like,
lot.
I mean,
but he shrugs while
he
he's
fights
doing it.
really well, and I know all superheroes are supposed to be able to fight really well, but he was like, maybe was he like a Marine? Maybe is that maybe his background? Like, did he have some kind of like combat training? I mean,
well, in the comics, he's a protege of Batman.
Yeah,
like,
Batman.
oh, okay.
so like he's in his stable, and so in Batman and the Outsiders, he rolled with him in the other versions of the Outsiders. He rolled with Batman. Even his inclusion in the Justice League in the post-Infinite Crisis team, he ends up joining up because of Batman, and he's doing some spy work for him. So I would imagine that anyone who gets to fight with Batman, you learn how to fight from Batman. And all those people can scrap.
Yeah. And it would be cool if they make some sort of nod, because they've done it in the shows before, about him training in Gotham City or something like that, just to kind of throw that in.
Well, I wonder how that's going to play out, right? Because Gotham is on another TV station entirely.
But there have been references. Supergirl has a blatant reference to a family that says we're moving back to Gotham City.
Right.
So, and Bloodhaven has come up in the different CWs several times. So, it's not that they can't have a Gotham City. It's that, they probably just can't go there.
Right.
They can talk about it all you want. So,
and speaking of a shared universe, because you mentioned this earlier, on the TV stations they talked about how in other cities have heroes, and they were you kind of asked the question, maybe it was asked in the show, why is Black Lightning not considered a hero in the same manner as maybe Flash or Supergirl, assuming that it's in the same world? I know they said that they're not, but I think that would be kind of dumb to not do it, especially for Sweeps Week.
I can't imagine that, and this is just me talking, but I can't imagine that, the CW didn't learn a thing or two from the Supergirl on CBS fiasco that prevents them from more readily crossing over. I mean, they've got it down with their technology and with Vibe now, and he could be on his own Earth, and if he is, he is. But it's just so much easier to just build that in, and I don't think there's any harm in him not crossing over his entire first season with them, so he builds his character. But I just hope they leave the door open.
Well, I think the reason why they did that was, again, more for the cultural undertones where, hey, when the white superheroes do this, they're superheroes. When the black person does this, he's a vigilante. Right. So I think it plays into that entire angle.
And they also did say, from a production standpoint, if I remember this, I think this is shooting in Georgia. Oh, okay. Whereas the other stuff shoots in Canada, Vancouver.
That's
so it's a little...
so they might be able to fly him out there.
Right.
But they couldn't get the whole cast to come down there.
And
I
tropical people.
And maybe it's because of my just lack of knowledge of the culture aspect of it, and that's my fault, not anyone else's. I didn't really pick it up as so much as because of his race, but I thought maybe it had more to do with the fact that Black Lightning was more willing to let people be casualties of their own crimes and allow people to die, versus where Flash or Supergirl really kind of have a no-kill rule, kind of like Batman in a sense.
The first of these CW heroes that we were introduced to was Arrow, and all he did was kill people.
Is Arrow considered a hero, though?
Well, depending on what season you're talking about, I guess.
I mean, he's still a vigilante all the same, right? Mm-hmm. But he was the first one. Yes, it was kind of shocking when he was fighting through the hotel where he grabs a kid and then lets him get shot.
Yeah.
And I was taken a little back by that, but it's just but this is really how it is with gangs. You shoot people, they die, and that's just kind of how it is. But because this is grittier, because you're talking about the inner city, and they lead off talking about gangs and gang violence. So this isn't going to be Star Labs and smiling and laughing and all of those things. There's going to be a lot of drama, the daughter was sitting there talking about how stoned she was, and that you weren't going to have sex with me, or all that. This is more adult than those other shows, so I expect some more adult things, and maybe it's not in that 7 o'clock time window. It's closer to the 8:39, 9 o'clock time slot. I caught it on replay. I didn't watch it live, so I mean that's the thing for me, is that this is clearly going to be more adult. So I don't know that they're going to cross over right away, or if they do, he's going to look at some of the childishness that's going on and be like, "Child, please," because all of these other heroes are teenagers, early 20s, things like that. This is he is a grown man.
So he may not... Yeah, I understand when you say that. He's not going to really be able to relate with Flash or Supergirl unless they happen to have a common enemy sometime in the future.
Exactly.
Which, given... It seems like Black Lightning's going more street
level.
level.
As a principal, he may be looking at it as these people need me to teach them what...
Right.
what they're doing, because they're still making all these youthful mistakes too. I mean,
Black Lightning and the Outsiders.
I think it'll be most interesting to see he and Arrow and see who can outgruff each other on the because how cranky can we be in one show? But it would be fun.
There was, and this is my last point I was going to say, that I don't really have much after this. There was one line in the show that I really enjoyed. I thought it was a really cool line. It was made by his tailor, where he said that the promise you made was well-intentioned, but it always had an expiration date. I liked how it seemed like with the character Black Lightning, sure, he was retired, but he was always itching to put the mask back on and go and fight fights. And whether it was crime or not, he wanted to do that, and that this was the catalyst to allow him to do it. And I thought that was kind of a cool line, and it kind of goes back to my first point was, it's not an origin story. This is a retired hero. Yeah. It's coming back to fight again, and I'm kind of interested to see if they have if it's an ongoing reason why he always puts on the mask, or if it's going to become a mission where he wants to fight crime perpetually, right, like Batman does, so to speak.
I think you're going to see probably the show become about his daughters as much as him in some ways. I think they're going to be sort of discovering whatever's happened to them. We only really have the one little hint of it so far, but I think that's going to be part of the arc of the series as well.
Mm-hmm. Well, they've already released a picture of Thunder in costume, so we know that that's going to come up this season. I don't know if we'll see the other daughter manifest anything season 1. But...
Well, I mean, so if we're talking about the characters from the comics, the older daughter, Anissa, ultimately becomes Thunder, and in the comics she ends up joining the Outsiders, which is led by Arsenal and Nightwing, and they have a lot of great adventures. They cross over with the Teen Titans and have their own group of people that they end up fighting, and so to see her growth and development in this show is going to be interesting. Also, his daughter in the comics throws on a blonde wig, so to see this particular lady, with the blonde wig on, portraying that character would be very interesting. Mm-hmm. But I think the youngest daughter actually doesn't gain her powers until, or she doesn't. It's not revealed that she has powers for some time. So I imagine you may get 2 or 3 seasons down the line where she's not still in high school, because clearly based on the way that this younger daughter acts, like if she gets powers, like she's going to flaunt them and do all of that stuff, which is going to cause a lot of problems. Not that it can't be done, or they can't break from the comic book, from the base comic, but Anissa is going to be the one who's probably going to have the most, or Thunder, or whatever they decide to call her. I know that they're going to call her Thunder, but she's going to be the one, because she was the one who had her powers and even had her own run for quite some time.
All right, cool. Any final thoughts? We kind of come close to wrap up time here. Anything else you'd like to add?
I'm interested to see where they're going to take the characters. And the story arcs. I'm going to make a prediction that says that the wife is going to throw him for a loop, and that she's probably seeing somebody, or some CWS twist that we can look forward to complicate his love life. But beyond that, I'm interested to see where we're going and who else they bring in from the comic world, because that's been the great thing about all the CW producers, is they've not been afraid to throw people in and throw villains of all types into these shows. So
I'm sure at some point we'll get a gratuitous Static Shock, right? Like,
sure.
But yes, I would love to see, Geoforce, or I forget what country they're from, but I think it begins with an S.
Markovia?
Yeah, Markovia. There we go. Markovia, or somewhere like that, because they teamed up together in Batman and the Outsiders and some other books. So, I'd love to see some of those characters that have a lot of history with him show up.
And I believe Markovia has already been brought up in the Arrow series, exactly. So we know that's there, so that would be easy.
All right, anything final, Matt?
Oh, I just enjoyed it. I really liked it. I want to watch episode 2 as soon as possible.
Anthony, anything final from you?
Did you mention the thing about the poem?
Oh, the poem that they say at the beginning, the Justice Like Lightning poem, which is sort of a alteration of a semi-famous poem, but those exact words that they said at the beginning of the show were the same words they opened the comic with in the 70s. So,
no, I enjoyed the show. Look forward to watching it. It's Something else is taking up space on the DVR, and I may have to start pruning my superhero TV show tree, because there are so many of these things coming out, and we still have yet to discuss Runaways and some of the other series that are out there going or that are slated to appear. So plenty of good superhero fiction out there, and it's a great time to be a nerd.
And maybe I could add to how to watch the show. Obviously, it comes on CW.
Mm-hmm.
I watched it on the CW app. That was probably the easiest way if you don't have a cable subscription or don't really bother having TV ears if you're like me. Free way to watch it. You have to watch a few commercials, but
Yep, it is on the app, and you can order the episodes on your various services, iTunes and Amazon, and places that have individual episodes, or catch it when it comes on the CW. So, okay, so what did you guys think about the episode? We'd love to hear from you as well. You can shoot us an email at infinitedangerroom@gmail.com. You can tweet at us at DangerInfinite on Twitter. You can find us on Facebook. We're Infinite Danger Room there. You can leave us a rating or a review on iTunes. You can also listen to the show via SoundCloud or at newsok.com. So for Matt Howlett, Anthony Brown, and Chris Borthick, I am Matthew Price. Thank you for listening.